Hello and welcome to my community on Afrocentric TV channel 27.9. My name is Kolawole Akinmuyiwa, your host. As always, my community is that program that brings about, the occurrences, the people, the businesses in the Houston metro area where we tell our own story, without having to give the pen to another to write it for us. We showcase our intellectuality, our community. We talk about our businesses. We talk about the people that makes it happen. And one of those people with me today is who we call Honorable, listen to this, Honorable Jarvis Diallo. I have to say that loud so y'all can hear that. Johnson. Honorable Johnson, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you for what you do.
Well, hey, like I said, it's what we do. This is where we derive pleasure. We enjoy, letting our people know things that are happening, not just happening. However, um, the big media will never tell us that we're doing good.
Right.
They are quick to showcase if there's one person that did a mishap or wrong, and that's what they showcase. They never tell our story. They never tell, oh, this African or this African American doing this, doing something great, something fantastic for the community. So every opportunity we get, we'd like to showcase it, and that's why you're here today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for all you do for Afrocentric television. Your support over the years has been fantastic. We love it on stage. When our people see you, they always think you're Nigerian. I don't say that. But yeah, that's where the Diallo name comes from. For those of you that he will tell us about it. So, in a nutshell, tell us who you are and what you've done in the past. As far as, because from the story that I was able to gather in the brief time that we spent, you said you were into community activism when you were in your 20s. That's a rascality, isn't it?
Well, I don't think I had a choice.
Right.
Much like you, I found enjoyment in helping others. And when you find enjoyment in helping others, it becomes kind of like life's passion. But it wasn't always like that. So my mother, she kind of steered me in the direction that I had no other choice of going. So she was one of those strong-handed mothers. She didn't play. So wherever she went, I went, and I'm glad. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like, when your parents want you to eat your vegetables, you go, I don't like it, I hate it. But
they know what's good for you.
That's right. And then once you get to a certain age, you start realizing, I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
So, just being around my mother and she teaching me and I'm seeing the work that she had done, and recognizing the struggle that we all have, and that the only way that we come out of that is by coming together. And so I just watched her as I grew, and then the opportunity kind of came around for me to become step in the shoes of activism, and so I started working with an organization called Phoenix Outreach Youth Center when I was 21. Became the executive director. And
at 21?
Yeah, I was still in college. I was working full-time at night, going to school full-time during the day, and then ran the after-school program in the evening. And so, and the program was just simply a program that individually created curriculums for children to be able to master their academic level, and then become, go on to whatever successful level that they have done. So we set that up, but I also believe that, children will be what they see. And so this program being in the Fifth Ward in the 90s, drugs were rampant. A lot of things were going wrong with the community. And so I did all that I could to expose the children to different things. So we traveled all over the country and then all over the world. I've taken children as far as Africa, to Ghana, Gambia, Senegal, to make sure that they got the exposure that they need, so they see that the world is not just that little community that they live in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And I learned also that you're one of the youngest, if not the youngest at the time, city council member.
Yep. Again, running the after-school program at 21 and doing the work that I was doing, opened the door for a lot of people to want to see me involved in politics, and my mother having to work, with the late Congressman Mclaughlin, when she was working for him. Again, I had an opportunity of being exposed to politics at a very young age. I wasn't bitten by the political bug. I never wanted to be an elected official. It's just something that ended up happening because I realized that if I wanted to reach the children and change their conditions and change their lives, I had to reach the parents.
Yeah, so I have to be in a position of power to do
right.
so.
But I also realized that if I'm going to reach the parents, that I had to change the neighborhood. But if I wanted to change the neighborhood, then I had to change the city. And so that's kind of what led me to the creating of the opportunity, because my youth program was, we were generously donated a new building by the Houston Rockets. But unfortunately, politics got in the way, and the city of Houston actually tried to close my program down. And I went to the city and I told everybody what I did, and everybody was so amazed. And they all were like, "Oh, it's so wonderful. Next." And so I was like, "You're not going to help?" And so nobody at the city could help. And so
really?
That's kind of reason that made me want to run for office, because at no point should anybody go to the city and ask for support and you not get it. And so I was kind of patted on the head and said, "Oh, you're doing great with the kids." And
let's keep it moving.
Yeah. So that's kind of what led me into
what district was that?
District B.
B. And then you went ahead to become a state rep.
Yeah. So I did 3 terms as a city council member. Did a lot of great things for the community. We had the largest CIP, which is capital improvement, to make sure that we had better infrastructure, building better roads, building, making sure that our communities didn't flood, so that we can attract more houses, which attracts more businesses, so forth and so on. So we did that, got a lot of money donated for Texas Southern University to build theater arts programs, things like that. And then from there, I left from politics altogether for about 6 years and started running my own restaurant. And
I was going to say, what were you doing between that time frame? So you were running restaurants?
Yeah. Because at that time, I think in 2011, everybody was saying that businesses couldn't thrive in the Black community. And so I set a point to go out, and we created this restaurant. And I hired a lot of the young people from the community. I hired a lot of people who needed a second chance.
Everyone created jobs with it.
Created a lot of jobs for a lot of people. And then Sylvester Turner went on to become mayor, which left the seat open for state rep, and I ended up running for state rep.
And you got it.
And I got it.
And that was before District 139.
139.
North side. Yeah. You've been doing that since what, 2016? You
2016. Yeah. And during that time, we got over 50 bills passed. One of the bills that I'm most proud of is my very first bill, and that was to put vocational ed back into school. A lot of times we've gotten away from vocational ed. We've gotten away from teaching of multimedia. We've gotten away from teaching of computers. We got away from teaching from auto mechanics and wood shop and, electricians. We got away from that and thought everybody should go to college. But everybody wasn't going to college. And so we have to create, again, people have the opportunities of going into the workforce, but they need to go in the workforce prepared and skilled. And so we put vocational ed back into schools, and now we're seeing kids graduate from high school, not trying to go into the job market ill prepared, but actually going into the job market skilled and able to go and find jobs that will sustain them, as opposed to just working some minimum wage job. But in addition to that, we worked hard to protect our senior citizens. We worked hard to protect those that are afflicted with sickle cell. Most of the times, people who are afflicted with sickle cell are treated horribly. And I set out to create bills that would put humanity back into healthcare. Because a lot of times people who are afflicted with sickle cell, the only way that you can deal with the pain is through opioid therapy. And unfortunately, a lot of times when Black folks show up at the hospital, they think they're drug seeking, but they actually have sickle cell.
They need help.
They need help, not to be given Tylenol and sat in a corner. But oftentimes that's what happened. And so I created and passed a lot of bills for that. Worked hard again to support Texas Southern University, getting a lot of money for the university to make sure the HBCUs were equally funded. Still not being equally funded, but we still worked hard.
At least to get them something.
In 21, we got Texas Southern the largest appropriation it has ever gotten in the history of Texas, close to $190 million. And they had never gotten that ever before. So, you know, the work continues. It's still a lot of work to be done.
So, I love the emphasis on your individualism with all these people, the community, and how you met them first from, you know, being a 21-year-old activist to you being a rep.
Mm-hmm.
For people that doesn't know who Honorable Jarvis is,
mm-hmm.
Can you tell us in your own words who you are as a person? You know, now we understand what you do and what you have done and what you can do, which we'll still talk about, but you as a person, you know, it takes, I always tell people, you can't give out what you don't have.
Right.
I believe strongly you have a lot of love and passion in you to want to give out to the next man, the
mm-hmm.
next person, the next family, the next community. You know, the way you built it from the child, before you can change that child, you have to change the parent. From that parent, it has to be the home, and home to the community. You know, so you being that person, I know one of the things you kept saying, the emphasis has been on mom instilling all of this and you and give it that exposure. So who are you as Honorable Johnson?
Well, again, I'm just as humbly as I can possibly be.
Like
just somebody who can, you know, work in the community, who has a desire to see the community in all of its greatness, and doing a lot of the work that you guys are doing, just to simply change the narrative on who we are. And I truly believe that I'm the flag bearer for all Black men, regardless of who you are. I think we all should have that, because if I'm the flag bearer, then that means that everybody is looking at me, and I have to be upright. I have to be transformative. I have to be, you know, I have to be solid in my thoughts and deliberate in my actions. And even I encourage I hope everyone can do that, because when we do that, we're always going to have put forth our best. Oftentimes we don't realize that we're being judged in everything that we do. We walk outside the door, and I'm judged based on somebody else's actions. I'm judged based on that one person that does something wrong, that, you know, the police will judge me and see, oh, that's a Black man, and I may get shot, or I may get detained or something. So I look at myself as the flag bearer, and I teach my son that, but my mother, you know, taught me that. And I say this kind of tongue in cheek and in jest, but my mother loved me with every ounce of her soul. She just didn't like me. And so not liking me is what made me the man that I am, because, you know, when you like somebody, you want to please them. You want to spoil them. And my mother loved me. She didn't like me. So she didn't buy me every tennis shoe that I wanted. She didn't buy everything that I wanted. She trained me. In the Bible, it says in Proverbs 22:6, train up the child in the way that they go. And so she trained. And that's why I am the man that I am today, because she trained. She didn't just show me, she trained me. And so when I was in college, she paid for my first semester of college, and I made very bad grades in that first semester, my freshman year. And she said, I ain't paying for no more school, and so the rest is on you. But you going to school. The
emphasis on you're going to school.
Oh, you're going to school.
But you're paying.
But you're going to pay for it.
You ain't finna waste my money and not do.
Not at all. Not only waste the money, but
that sounds like an African parent.
But you're also not going to embarrass me. You're also not going to embarrass all Black men. You're gonna be the example, so that when people look at you, they should look at every Black man that way. And so you have to be that example. And so that's why I say children will be what they see. And so I wanted to make sure that every time somebody saw me, they saw somebody who was strong, somebody who stood up tall, somebody who didn't wince, who wasn't was scared. I was just an individual who wanted to help my community. So as humbly as I can simply say, I just want to be the flag bearer. And I'm not saying that arrogantly. I'm saying we all have to be flag bearers for ourselves, so that our community, even for outside communities, because unfortunately, when it comes to, nobody knows that you're African unless you say your name. They just see you as a black man, right?
That's the first thing.
But at the end of the day, imagery is I think our biggest downfall, because the images that they put on us on television, in the news, anywhere, is always negative. And so we have to change that. We have to change that by being the example to show people that
we have to make it black is beautiful, as opposed to black is the bad one.
Right.
White is the right color.
Right. They always show the black family fragmented. They never show the black family. They never show a black man with his wife and his children. You never see that. And so you always, and so everybody thinks that the black community is fragmented. Oh, the divorce is so high. Divorce, it's like, it's for everybody, but why do you emphasize it with us? And so again, I try to be that individual that gives the example that everybody can look at.
So given the way it's turning now, I mean, we have a new president, and everywhere is a chaos, right? Everyone is afraid. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn. They look up to people like you to say, hey, give us direction.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for people that you think that are doing the odd jobs in this community, that are afraid to come out now, maybe because of deportation, or maybe because they've had, they made a mistake when they were younger, and they had some sort of a background that might count against them now. What advice do you have for them? I know you're doing everything within your power to build a bond within the community, to get everybody ahead, but some of us are still afraid because this new government is it's something we have to walk through it somehow, some way, right? But what will be your advice, so to say, for people? I'm given that Houston as a city, though not a sanctuary city, I think, but still give some kind of leverage for foreigners, because we are a very diverse community.
Well, I think there's power in numbers, and so we have to, within any community, when you are cohesive and you come together, that you can change conditions. When you talk about politically right now, unfortunately, in politics, I think people are more inclined to want antics over action. They just want people to be loud, and I say it all the time. They just want people with volume but no vision, and so, and that's why you have a president who, everybody wants to. He speaks just like me. He speaks the way I can understand it, and that's probably the worst thing in the world. I don't want the president of the United States of America to speak like everyday citizen. It's just not how it's supposed to be. It's like I want the president to be better, and so I just encourage everybody to, number one, understand cohesion and what that means. We collectively as a community can change things. We collectively as a community can protect those who are vulnerable, though we can collectively support one another and pull each other up. When we are able to do that and be successful, we have power. And we don't have to, in today's society, worry about somebody coming and taking it from us. But again, I think we have to start having a better understanding of what we want from our leaders, what we expect out of them, and just stop voting for people who say, if you vote for me, this is what I'm gonna do for you. And you go, but you've never done it before, so how are you gonna do it? Everybody always has a great idea. Everybody has the best ideas in the world. But in politics is the only job where you don't have to have experience, where you don't have to have, you don't have to have any qualifications. You just loud and run and tell people you can you can do
Do
it.
stuff.
Everybody, you watch soccer?
I do,
and
of course.
I played soccer growing up, and
Wow.
and I know the game. But it's always funny when you go to the game. Everybody says how bad the coach is. But you know that's a professional, right? He knows all.
Everybody's an analyst from the bench.
Everybody, yes. Monday morning quarterbacks. Everybody can. The Rockets coach. The Rockets lost last night, and everybody was the coach did a horrible. You think you can do a better job? Politics is the only time when you can look at the person and say, "Oh, they're doing a horrible job, and I want your job." And so then you go and you run against that person and you take their job. That's the only business. And I think that's what's wrong with America today, is because we just got a whole lot of unqualified people making a whole lot of very important decisions for this country. And it's sending us down the wrong path, and it's very hurtful to the little man. It's very hurtful to, the people who are just simply, who've built this country. Those workers who are in the fields, those workers who own the factories, and those workers that, every day go to work to try to, have a great living for their families. Unfortunately, you got a whole lot of dumb people running this country. So I'd say again, what can the little man do? What's the advice? Cohesion, that we must come together. But have a vision and have a plan for what we want for our community, not just, we all just come together for what? You got to have a vision. You got to have a plan so that you'll know where you're going.
So, seeing all of this, you said, and seeing where you started from and where you are today, I think we still need you in the bigger, picture for the state of Texas. Is there hope for that, for you to run for Senate?
Well, I ran for Senate in Senate District 15 and 24. Unfortunately, I did not win. I lost by 41 votes to be exact. There were a lot of people who said I shouldn't run and certainly couldn't win because the district wasn't a black district. And I was always like, well, I didn't know you had to only run for black districts. But the district was primarily a white and Hispanic district. But I also said that it didn't matter, because if you're going to help the community, you're going to help the community. If my house is on fire, I don't care who brings the water. Right. I just want somebody who has the best knowledge on putting out the fire.
Right? Just like COVID, when you're sick, right. It doesn't matter if the doctor is black or white.
That's right.
You just want to get better.
That's right. And unfortunately, I lost to someone who had no experience, but had a whole lot of money, and just simply told the people whatever they wanted to hear. And that was that she was going to be a champion for women's reproductive rights. She was going to be a champion for the LGBT community, and she was going to fight against the Republicans. It's like, that's what we all do. But, what's the plan once you get there? Yeah. And unfortunately, they don't have one. So do I want to run for office again? Do I ever see myself being in office again? Absolutely. I don't know right now if politics or the people really want someone who has a plan, who has a vision, and who can get the job done. Yeah. I think when you look at my resume and you look at the things that I've done since I've been in office, from city council to state rep, I have brought personally the money that I personally fought for, not my own personal money, but the money that I have fought for my community, $2.1 billion through various projects, through infrastructure, through money for education, fighting for money for, the theater arts, fighting for money for after school programs, $2.1 billion. I see the people that are running for office right now, and I don't know if the voters know what they're voting for. I think oftentimes they just vote for somebody. Oh, they came to my church. Oh, I saw them at this gala. Oh, that's my niece's friend. None of that should matter when it comes to when you are elected.
The decision we make during the election period is what's going to govern us.
Right.
To where we're going to be. And I guess that's probably why we're seeing the chaos we're in today.
That's right. You had a woman that was well qualified in Vice President Harris, running for the presidency, had checked all the boxes. Unfortunately, you had this other person on the other side that was running and could tell as many lies and jokes as he possibly could, and the people, but they voted for him.
Well, that's what they want to hear.
And that's what they want to hear. And that's why I say, I don't know if the voters truly understand what running for office is and what that elected official is supposed to do. The elected official for any office, whether it's city council, state rep, Congress, Senate, doesn't matter. That elected official's job is to bring resources back to the community and to pass bills that would elevate the community. And I don't think right now that the voters understand. Right now, the voters just want, if you're a Democrat, all they want you to do is to go and fight and curse and beat up on the Republicans. That's all they want. And you go, that's not what I want from my elected official. Right. I want my elected official to bring resources back, to make the community better, make my living, arrangements better. I want my community to be better. I want jobs. I want the creation. I want infrastructure that won't flood my neighborhood, so forth and so on. So we got to get on a real informative, network to go out and talk to the voters to make people understand this is what an elected official is supposed to do. You don't want them to be loud and boisterous and just simply screaming and yelling.
Just saying, I can do this.
You want them to be a thinker. Yeah. You want them to be a planner. You want them to be a strategist to bring resources back to your community, not just somebody, Donald Trump is stupid. Ted Cruz is stupid. The governor is me cursing out the governor and the president ain't gonna change nothing. But me organizing the community to demand dollars for our community is a whole lot better than just simply cursing people out.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you for all you've done. Thank you for all you're doing and yet still do. We so much appreciate you. And we want you to know that anytime you decide that you want to go back or to run again, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to throw our support because your pedigree, speak for itself. You have the resume to, that people can relate with. So now this leads me to wanting to say, given the African community and the African American community, if they want to say, okay, they want to read up on you, they want to support you for whatever it is you're doing, maybe on the next they want to. So how can they reach out to you? Maybe via social media, email, whatever, if any platform out there that you can share with us so we can encourage our people to, because we love to support those that will make us grow. You challenge us to be better. And that's what you do. And that's what we're looking for. And now that we know someone like you is out there doing the work, that we need to be able to support what you do. So in order to do that, just let us know how we can.
Well, people can reach me. My email is just simple, jarvisjohnson@yahoo.com. So I got in very early, and you people can follow me on Facebook, or they can follow me on Instagram at Rep Jarvis Johnson, and Facebook is all the same. You can just simply look it up and Google it. I did have a website. I would probably need to update it and get it back up, but it was jarvisfortexas.com. And so people can, again, reach out, follow, or, and I'd be more than happy and always willing to speak before my community, because I think the most important thing that we can do as Black folk is to come together, regardless of whether or not you're from Africa or you're from Acres Homes. The fact is that we're all, here.
We need to bridge that gap anyway.
We have to.
We need to bridge that gap.
We have to.
We don't mind you being the resource, but we need to bridge that gap.
Because the African American community need to stop looking at the African community as enemy, and the African community needs to stop being so smart, because they also brilliant. Every last one of them. Like, man, everybody come from Africa got a degree.
It's the way we raised. Remember when you're talking about mom earlier, I said
Mm-hmm.
that sounded like an African mother, you know. So yes, thank you so much. I guess we will have to bring you on next time.
Yeah.
But for now, we will have to, pay our sponsors. But thank you so much to the Honorable Jarvis Diallo Johnson. I will always put that name Diallo. We appreciate you from from where you started from, and now becoming the state rep for District 139 in North Side. We appreciate you. We thank you. We love everything about what you do, and we just continued success will be our prayer for you. All right. Please stay tuned. Do not touch the dial. We'll be right back. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to my community on Afrocentric TV channel 27.9. I remain your host, Kolawole Akinmuyiwa. And I hope you enjoyed the last segment. Where we continue, and this second part of the segment, and then we want to talk about our community at large, and doing so can only be done through someone that's conversant with the community, that understands the community, not just from the perspective of an ordinary person, but also growing through the political realm, and even served and even became a mother of a rep. You have to give it up for who we call the mother of our community here in the Houston area, Madam Cleo Glenn Johnson.
How
Look at how softly she said that. Hello. How are you? Very well. You remember, guys, let me remind you, when former President Joe Biden gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award, she was the one that presented it to me. And she butchered my name. But I forgave her.
I know.
I forgive her.
Please.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you. I know.
I will always reference it, but I loved it. But it was a moment for me.
It was a moment for both of us.
So welcome, and welcome back to our station. Um, First of all, thank you for gracing our studio. We
Thank you
think
for
it's
having me.
it's a pleasant opportunity, a rare one, to see someone like you bring you all the way to our studio to come talk to us. Educate us a little bit about because a lot of us have ambition. A lot of us have we miss our mothers, back home in Africa and in other states maybe. But you're here, someone we look up to, someone that has not just the political know-how, but also understand the community and what it takes to grow one, right? So why don't you, for people that do not have the privilege to meet you before now, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Okay. What is the hardest thing to do is to even know who you are.
Right.
To be very, very honest with you. Because you never pay attention to the things that you do. Now, I see more about who I am now since I've had grandchildren and great grandkids, because recognizing that I see who I am through my children. My children represent all the things that I never will be and could be. So I raised my children to be the people that they are today, recognizing that they needed to do what I couldn't do. And so when I look over my past, I think about how my parents were, about the things that I was exposed to, the things that I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do. But here's the thing. Nobody would believe that I wanted to be a nun until I was 15 years old.
I still don't believe it.
It was something that, because I grew up Catholic and I used to teach catechism, and I liked being able to go in and actually teach and show children how to become the Word of God, not just hearing it. I wanted them to understand what it meant to serve. And so, and I was in elementary school, like the 6th grade, and I'd go every day back to the church and teach the kids after school at our Mother of Mercy Catholic Church in Fifth Ward. And so I wanted to be, also during the time that I was growing up, there were a group of nuns that were activists. They were the singing nuns because they were going against some of the things that the church was doing and not doing. And I figured, I said, if I become a nun, I could be radical. And I could have the audience and I could have people listening to me. So that was my motivation at that point. However, I guess the right boy said the right thing. And I had to I had to say, Jesus, I love you. But he's here and I can see and touch and feel. So, but anyway, and as I continue to evolve my first profession, and the reason I was so happy that my son chose to enhance and promote vocational training, I became a barber when I graduated from high school. My two aunts own their own barbershops, and I realized that that could be a way for me to earn my own income in order to send myself to school, and which I did. And I must say myself, I was good. Because people think that cutting hair is just an easy thing to do.
Right.
And so for my son to have recognized that vocational training was necessary, I enjoyed being a barber for I think about 5 or 6 years. Then after I got married and started having children, I couldn't continue cutting hair because I couldn't continue standing. But being a barber was a blessing for me because you learn so much from the community. You learn from everyone who comes in. And see, remember, barbers become the best psychologists.
They are. And they
right.
truly are. Because they don't hear different stories about
That's
different
right.
people.
That's right. You can never keep your story, his story, her story. Everybody's story is different. Everybody needs someone to talk to that's not going to repeat what they're talking about. But going forward, and after I started doing other community work, I volunteered a lot because my parents did. My parents made sure that on election day that we were out at the precincts, passing out literature, encouraging people to vote and who to vote for. So I got that experience and exposure based on what my parents were doing in the community. And my father was a big volunteer. But what made my mother so special is that both my parents were foster parents. I had 76 foster sisters and brothers.
Whoa.
And so my parents, and we got babies as young as 3 days old, and we kept some as long as 2 years. But when you recognize how many people get rejected, neglected, and never loved, nurtured, and cultivated, simply because you had all these babies that needed someone to love them, that had been given away. And so that has to ignite a fire in you to say, how do we make these changes that we don't have so many babies being born and not wanted? Now, you had, some babies that came to us as drug babies. And my mom and my aunt discovered how to cure that problem. Now, it was by accident, of course. One of the baby's mom had been an alcoholic and a cocaine addict. And the baby cried all the time because of withdrawal pains. And so when she hadn't gone to sleep, she'd be crying. But one day she stopped crying all of a sudden. And we went in the room to find out what was wrong and found that she was sucking a bottle that she had found that had fallen between the railing of the baby bed. And it was soured milk. And it was the best thing she had ever had in her life. She just was drinking it and drinking it and drinking it. And so sour milk became one cure, which calmed her stomach down. But then my mom and my aunt went to a goat farm and got goat milk. And that was it. Goat milk actually did the curing. And the baby blossomed into a beautiful baby. But when she came to us, she looked like it. You know how when frogs, the elongated looking frog with long arms,
and legs,
that's what the baby looked like, originally, like a frog. Okay? And so when you come up in that kind of environment, exposed to all of those needs, then what do? I mean, you've got to be moved by the things that you see around you. You've got to understand, how do we fix this when others who are supposed to be doing it are not doing it just yet? Even to the degree, Mickey by this time had, because let me preface something. Mickey Leland and I grew up from age 3 and 4. We went to the same church, the same schools, and he was an integral part of my family because his mom dated my uncle. All right, so we knew each other from very, very little. So we did a lot of things together. And given that, when he got ready to run for office, of course, we were always there to help him get through whatever he was getting through so the community would understand, we need this guy because he's talking about health care because Mickey was putting um, clinics, free clinics in the community to help in the underserved communities. Okay. So, you're working with a guy who was passionate about the missing link in our community was healthcare. But remember, Mickey was a pharmacist. He was not a doctor or a lawyer. He was a pharmacist. Okay. And he had already matched up with the University of Houston students who was helping with the clinics. And so anyway, so Mickey goes off to become a state rep, and to recognize what he was doing and how he was trying to change the community was equally as important. Okay, so that's how Cleo Johnson became Cleo
Johnson.
Glenn became who she eventually has become, and then the work that I got exposed to. I worked in areas where there was always an unmet need. So I learned from when I worked for the CEDAR program, what were they really doing? And when you recognize the only thing that they were writing proposals on was addressing unmet needs by talking about it, but not really providing solutions. That's all they were doing. And they were sending out funding and putting funding in certain components that weren't doing anything to change my community or create the opportunities that was necessary. So fast forward, when you recognize that there were no opportunities in our community, when I became the president of Black United Fund of Texas in 1980, I think 7, something like that, it was about addressing the unmet needs of the community by creating opportunities for people to help themselves.
So that's what the Black United Fund of Texas does.
It's all about.
And you've been the president for 38 years.
Yes. Now, that gets to be hard because it's not during the time. Think about 38 years ago, what I had to go through when I talked about being Black. My organization is Black. And the fact that I started wearing African clothes in the 70s. And so, people were like, that's a nice costume. And I'd have to go through, this is not a costume, this is my dress. And this is the way I dress, because when I wear African clothes, I get what I lost, what was taken from me. All right. And so that's why I say that, I am a Black American of African descent who was born in the wrong country. And this is not supposed to be the country I was born in. And so the thing is that in 38 years ago, to promote a Black organization with the word Black was even hard for my community to receive us. But to the degree that they wanted to change the name to Urban United Fund, or why don't you say Green? But I didn't start the Black United Fund. I am one of the affiliates of the National Black United Fund. And so the National Black United Fund had 15 different organizations around the country. And so Texas was just one of them. And we had tried to start it before, but it kind of fell by the wayside. And so I reorganized the Black United Fund. It was first the Houston Black United Fund. And then when I took it over, I said, well, it's going to be the Black United Fund of Houston. And then I decided, wait a minute.
Let's go statewide.
We got to go. That's right, because all of the concerns in our community is not all local. It's
similar.
That's right. It's everywhere. And so to be Black United Fund of Texas was more in tune with us helping the problem, because even today you have so many organizations that exist, but they're only working in their own space. And you got to recognize, no matter where you are, those particular things have suffocated us because we're working independent of one another and not together. The last speech that Mclaughlin did in Houston before his tragic accident, he spoke at the African Chamber of Commerce. And they had, I think, about 9 or 10 African countries that had come here through the American African Institute out of Washington, D.C. And Mickey made a point to say that as a people, we have got to erase the lines that divide us. Nigeria from Ghana, Ghana from Kenya, Kenya from Mali, Fifth Ward from Third Ward, Houston from Dallas. Because no matter where we are as a people, Black people suffer the same consequences of being rejected, last hired, first fired. And so we've got
last hired, first fired.
That's right. And so we got to actually recognize that I can't do it alone, that I've got to do it in a collective effort, because when I help me, I help my people. And so Black United Fund is about
forward.
That's right. We got to. And so that's what Black United Fund of Texas has been about, investing in our community in order for our community to help themselves, so that we can stop depending on government and charity to be our destiny. God did not give us that spirit. He has given us everything that we need to help ourselves, and we keep giving it away.
Because we believe the
man instead of God. Okay? So I have embraced the concept. I believe in the concept. And so as a Black woman in Houston, Texas, it has not been an easy journey to be the president of Black United Fund of Texas, but it's gotten better. I mean, 38 years later, yeah, I've scored some points, and it helped to some degree to, finally get a son who stepped into that arena. But both my children have become the people that I never would be, because they've gotten the exposure and experience that I didn't have. But I expect them to continue doing more than that. Matter of fact, before I even married, I said, God, if I don't live to realize the dream of helping my people, please let my children take over. And so I got my wish.
We see the results.
Yes.
See the results. Yes. And it's a beautiful story. See, I sat in amazement just listening to everything you had just said, from you growing up in the community to working as an assistant to Congressman Leland, and also Mickey Leland, that is, and also, being the president of the Black United Funds of Texas, and what you do with the funds and how you help the community. And now instilling that in your children, and now they're taking on the baton and running with it, right, and doing even greater things, which is what you've always prayed for.
Right.
Anyway, we have people in our community, mothers now, that would say, "Oh, how I wish I could do this. How I wish I could." Those that are still on the verge, that do not know how to pull forward, what is your advice for them as a mother, as a community leader, and as one that had worked even in the community to develop all of these things?
Well, that's the first thing. You have to work in the community, and you got to work in the community that has been labeled underserved. Because see, so often, yes, we aspire to have our children in high-profile organizations and getting all these accolades to grandiose kind of moments. But that child have a helping hand.
It wasn't handed to him.
That's right.
Or her.
That's right. But what we've got to understand, that God wants us to work for the one who does not have a helping hand. We need to understand that the helping hand that is your own has to go back into the community that does not have the nurturing, the guidance, the love, the caring, the exposure. These children didn't ask to be born in this environment. And so recognize one thing. I recognize that there's a thin line between me being the woman that's on welfare, living on the streets, or living on drugs, and me being who I am. So I work hard for her, because I want her children to succeed.
Should be better.
I want her children and her grandchildren who may encounter my children or my grandchildren. I want that child to have the same opportunities that my child or my grandchildren would have.
I heard you reference to God earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Now that seemed to be something consistent with what you've been saying. Because even when I was talking to Honorable Johnson earlier, you made mention of the way you teach your child the way it will go, so that when they grow, they will not depart from it. Quoting words from the Bible. Is that what you strongly believe, or is that who you strongly believe that can help? And when you feel lost, or when you need directions, even when it's beyond you, is that how you feel about, that there is God, someone you can cry on to, or and say, you know what, I need direction. I don't know how to go about this. Can you show me the way?
We'll call, by all means, by all means,
by all means,
by all means,
I love
because
that.
it has. I've had hard times. I've had difficult times. I am divorced. Back then, after 11 years of marriage, I became a divorcee. I was frightened, primarily because I had two children. And yes, I cried and prayed, and I stayed on my knees because I needed help. Because, see, I understood how to love my children, especially my son. My daughter had me every day, but my son needed a father every day. And unfortunately, that wasn't the situation. So I had to pray to my Father God to make sure that my son understood that his father, God, was going to take care of him, was going to give him guidance and be in his life. Even when you think that it's not happening, even when you say, how long do I have to pray? And why do I have to go through this? And why do I have to experience this? The journey is not going to be easy. It's not going to be everything presented to you. It's not going to be right away. You got to wait and understand that God will send it. You just got to be still. Now, oftentimes we want to be God. We want to do it ourselves. We want to fix it right away. and I'm no different, but I have to remind myself, you can't do this. You cannot do this without letting God let him order your steps, not you. And so oftentimes we try to order our own steps. So you got to let God guide that. And so when I saw my parents as foster parents and as the community mother, my mother kept all the children in the neighborhood. And so when my mother passed, children I haven't seen since they were little children with my mother. My mother died at 91 years old, and I was amazed. And all of them came back when they heard that she had passed. And so that spoke volume to me,
I bet,
as it related to what my mother did for others. And so when you see all of that, you know that only God could do that. That's only a God thing. And so I live by that. Even though when I feel like I'm at my worst, I don't give in and I don't give up. I keep on moving, and just as soon as I close my eyes and open again, He's already answered my prayer.
Hallelujah. So how do you keep it all together? You have two biological children of your own.
Mm-hmm.
You're married to Minister Mclaughlin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you have two children. You have 5 grandchildren, and you have a grandchild.
Right, a great grandchild.
Great grandchild. Yes. Whoa. And then you still do this for the community. How are you able to put it all together?
Well, now to be honest with you, it's just like drinking water.
That easy?
Yes, that easy. It is. My daughter is a nurse, and now she's amazing. She's really amazing because she's a paralegal, and she's a business person. She handles all of our programs to a great degree, and it's just multitasking, understanding that your purpose in life is to do how God guides you. And when you let God guide you, it's not difficult. It only becomes difficult when you start to try to guide yourself. And so My 5 grandchildren, I had the privilege of being able to, because I ran Blanket Nanny Fund, because we also had a restaurant. Let me just kind of back up a little bit and tell you a story. My son fired me from the restaurant because
He fired
he
you.
fired me. He asked my brother. He said, "Man, how do you fire your mother?" So he said, "Oh, I don't know." So then, then my brother tells me that Jarvis wanted to fire me because I was trying to get the people healthy. And Jarvis said, "I'm trying to make money. You're trying to feed the people healthy," because there was a couple of people that would come in that was overweight, in like almost
you trying to make them
250
eat
pounds.
healthy.
And I didn't want them eating pork chops and mashed potatoes and mac and cheese. I wanted them to get some greens or some string beans to go along with that. And the lady complained to Jarvis and said, "I don't know who that old lady is, but you better tell her stop telling me how to eat."
How to eat.
And so what I did was I said, "Okay, all right. So rather than let him fire me, I'm gonna quit and I'm gonna go get another contract." And so we had done some work with the people that with the city of Houston.
Uh-huh.
And so people had eaten our food, and my husband and I had gone down and we did these Creole dishes, and so they could smell all over the place, and everybody was loving it. So this man came to me. He said, "Look, there's a contract coming open with the Texas Department of Transportation. You need to apply for it." So I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I did, and my son helped me do it. And
so he didn't just fire you.
oh yeah, well
Just like he said in his story, you love him, but you don't like him. But
But look here, it went both ways. I'm sure how children are with their parents. But so anyway, I said, "This is what we're going to provide." So I made sure that we did sandwich food, barbecue, Creole food, soul food, and took it to the hearing where you had to go and produce your food to the Texas Department of Transportation. And so my son had been a city council person, so that was a little help there. But at the same time, everybody could smell the food all over the building. Everybody was coming down to just get the food. So yes, we ended up with the contract. And so he didn't have to fire me, and I didn't have to quit. I just created another
avenue.
That's right, and an extension to Aunt B's restaurant is what he owned, and we called our cafe B Dot Cafe.
Because the B is still there.
Yeah, the B was still there. And so we all enjoyed it. And we didn't actually close until COVID, actually closed us down. And so we were there for 6 years, which was a good thing. But here again, all of those things you managed to do, and you manage just because you allow God to order your steps. And even when the times look dark and dim and you don't know what's going to happen, you just got to stay faithful. And that's what I do. And that's what I believe. And I think that other women, you got to I'm surprised my son didn't tell the story about how he was a drug baby.
How do you mean?
Yes. The first time I heard it, I was shocked too. And I was like, what is he talking about? And he said, and everybody was looking, and of course they all looked at me strangely, like, "Oh, that little nice lady over there used to be on drugs." And then finally my son said, "She drugged me everywhere she was going. She drugged me to meetings. She drugged me to the office. She drugged me out of class. She drugged me to church. She drugged me everywhere." That's what you have to do to your kids. You got to take them places. You got to expose them to what's in the community so they can understand. I would take him to board meetings, both of them to board meetings with me. And I served on a board for mental health in the community, a mental health organization. And his first job ended up being at that particular organization as a rec specialist to help the people who were just kind of sitting around, just smoking cigarettes, trying to, I guess, get their lives back together. But he became the rec specialist to get them out of their head and get them doing something with their body so they could start changing their behavior and their attitude. Okay? And so that's what you have to do. You got to drug your children everywhere that you need them to be exposed to what's going on in the community. They cannot, you can't, and this is not going to sound okay, but it is okay. You can't just say that they go to church on Sundays Because going to church on Sundays
we're
don't get the
beyond
job
that.
done in the community. You can go to church on Sundays. If you don't take the word of God into the community, then you haven't done anything. Going to church was just a moment in time. It was just a fashion moment. It was just a conversation you wanted to hear to say that, oh, I was at church. Or you go to certain churches because of the political environment or who's there. But until we take the word of God back into the community and understand who we're supposed to serve and why we're supposed to serve, remember who he served, where he hung out, what he did. Okay, his son was in the community with the least of these. He doesn't talk about the people that are rich and highfalutin, does he? No. He asked that rich man, you got to give up everything you got to follow me. But somebody gave me all they had. We got to understand, how do we give all that we have in order for us to help other people achieve where they need to go? Because everybody wasn't born in the same environment, with the same climate, with the same support. When we do galas, I bring at least 100 children to the event because I want them to see success looking like them. So our honorees are all Black men and women that have done tremendous things, that have come from the same environment as these children.
That motivates and say, I can do that, I can be that.
That's right. They need to see success looking like them. But on top of that, I don't bring the honor roll kid. I bring the kid with the F and the D. I want to inspire them because they haven't had the nurturing and the guidance to do what the kid may be. Now, you have some kids that come out of, and let me say this to you, you have a lot of kids that are very brilliant that are in underserved communities. They just don't get the opportunity to use that. And so our job is to invest in our community in order for our community to help themselves. And
you have done a fantastic job, I'll tell you that. You have done a fantastic job. We see it in not just in what you do or what you continue to do. We've seen it in your son and what your daughter has become and your grandchildren. I mean, I saw a whole lot of them on stage the other day. And I'm like, ain't this a blessing?
Yeah.
You know, you're blessed. You're blessed. Thank you so much for coming through. Thank you for helping us with our community. Thank you for bringing the understanding. And thank you for giving us the avenue to bridge the gap between the African community and the African American community here in the United States, not just in Houston, Texas. And we hope that we'll be able to call on to you the next time. Maybe have what we call a roundtable conference, you know, to be able to talk about, you know, what's happening in the African community and the African American community and how we can really bridge that gap. Because I see that passion in you, and I saw it when I was talking to your son earlier. And, you know, that tells me there's something that we need to do, and we need to do it real soon.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all you do. So, guys, you have listened to Honorable Jarvis, Diallo. I will always tell you that, Johnson, right? And, of course, the mother, Madam Cleo Glenn Johnson. You know, I call her the mother of our community, right? So, and whenever we call on her, she's right there to support Afrocentric Television. She's a friend of the studio, the station, and of course for everything we do, the award shows and everything. And we love and appreciate the family for doing that. And that tells you the kind of people they are. They support whatever builds the community. And one of the advices she gave was, you know, when I was asking about how she does it, and, you know, first off is God. And secondly, you have to start with the community. Even if you want to have a seat at the table, start with your community, your immediate community, then you can expand. You can keep growing from there. And then bring someone along, just like our Congressman Mclaughlin brought her along. And now she was able to bring other people and even her children along. You know, so let's do something. Let's come together, you know, to help build our community. And just the way she's aspiring to do even better, even at she's a great grandmother, guys. And so if I'm telling you this, I'm telling you how passionate she is about doing some things like this. And I'm blessed, and I think our studio is also blessed to be a part of what she's doing. Thank you for watching our station, and please follow us, subscribe to our channel, and, you know, stay tuned until the next time. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.